everyone. This is your girl Fuller coming to you from airing it out. And I missed you guys. I know that you missed me, but you know every time I come with a treat. If you haven't been here to airing it out before, airing it out is a platform where we all come in, different people from around the world, around the globe, in different kind of, I'll say, mindset. You know, that's my thing. Different mindsets. Mindsets, changed mindsets. People that have been through things and they got their lives restructured and they want to come in and share with you how they restructured it. Things that can help you, that can help your husband, that can help your wife, that can help your kids. We come to make a difference. That's what airing it out is about. And before we get into our conversation for today, I want to make sure all of you guys, I know that they lifted the mandate, but I want you to be woke. I want you to stay woke. Y'all know that's the sound that comes on before we get started. Stay woke. I want y'all to see that this ain't what we're going to do. So if you going in these areas, put on your mask. It's okay. Flu season is upon us. Make sure we're doing these things. Monkey, all this stuff is still out there. So what we always talk about here, when we come here, we know is when these things come in to distract us, distraction. So don't let that distract you, all right? So today, like I told you, I came with a great treat. I have Miss Elyse Lancaster here with us. You guys, everything could happen to stop this beautiful young lady from talking to us today. But you know us, we will go around, over, and through to do what we must do. So I want you guys to meet Miss Lancaster. She's a pre-K teacher. And she just came to share with you some good nuggets. So I want each and every one of you, pick up your pens, pick up your papers, make sure you're taking notes. If you are in your car listening to this, take a mental note. Hello to you, Elyse. Welcome out to
Hi, everybody.
Out Nation. We are so glad to have you today. This has been a long time coming. I've had the pleasure of chatting with you. And now we get to share all of these juicy nuggets with the audience of airing it out. So jump on in here and let us know what you bring to the city of Atlanta.
Well, first and foremost, hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to get to know you all. I am not from Atlanta. I am from the DMV area. I am born and raised in Maryland. So it's nice to be in another city. But a little bit about me. I am an author. I wrote a book called Redemption where I talk about all of my triumphs and a little bit of my trauma that has led me.
Where can we find this? I mean, is it up?
Yes, you can find Redemption on Amazon.com. You would type in my first and last name. So that's Elyse, Elyse, Lancaster, Lancaster in the Amazon search box. My face is going to come up in this bright yellow outfit, so you won't miss it.
So all of you that didn't get that down, don't worry about it. We'll get Elise's information, and we're going to make sure it's at the end of the video. Please don't worry about you missing that. We're going to make sure you get it.
You won't miss it. So that in the book, I go into more detail, but I'm going to give you guys just a little bit of my story and how I've evolved to this place. So growing up, I had a father who was addicted to alcohol. So his anger a lot of the time stemmed from his substance abuse. Yeah. So if you fast forward, growing up in the house, I was the oldest. So a lot of the brunt of any of what he was dealing with fell to me. So I dealt with it in the best way, 12-year-old does.
Yeah. I mean, you're 12. I mean, you're put in an adult situation at 12. So yeah, you're not gonna, I don't know, an adult that knows how to really deal when we're dealing with substance abuse. And you guys, y'all know how I feel about this. Please know that alcoholism it's a disease, it's an addiction. And I think all of us were not prepared when, we went through it, as Elyse is sharing. So make sure you're listening to her and taking notes and see if you identify. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So for me, he was my father. So to me, initially growing up, you're not saying this is an addiction. You're saying this is
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
that
yeah.
somebody that I love just does.
Mhm.
But as I got older, he became verbally abusive. He would put me down a lot. He would say I would never be anything, I would never amount to anything. But the only times he would really act out were under the influence of alcohol. Um, and so as I got
May I ask
older,
a question? May I interrupt right there? So
sure.
can I ask you, I meant, was he like your hero? I mean,
And
did you have a relationship with him? Like, was he
I,
like a,
I would like to say he was the best father to me between the ages of like 2
Mhm.
and like 8
Okay.
before I started
Oh,
to
but you saw the difference.
absolutely,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. Alcohol has been something that, has unfortunately run on that side of my family for generations. But I
So
think
we got generational. Okay.
yeah, we're definitely dealing with a generational curse, generational trauma in that sense.
Mhm.
But I think he caught the brunt of it. So when it came to how he would deal with things, that was what he turned to. And so growing up in the house, it was very unpredictable. I never really knew which version of my father I would get. And so I walked around on eggshells a lot. So as I got older and I started to develop into a young woman, nobody really teaches you how to transition, how to transition, especially as a father who maybe didn't get that same
Mhm.
love.
He didn't see it modeled for him,
He
so he
didn't see it
didn't know
modeled
how to
for him.
model it for you.
Yeah, it's impossible to model. At
What you
times
don't
it is
see.
impossible for somebody to model that which they do not see.
See. Mhm.
And so without the grace of God and without the tutelage of God, it is impossible to become a version of yourself you have never met. And
Mhm.
so that even after the abuse, after all of the things I had suffered, it made it easier to deal with my father when I stepped out of being his little girl. And I developed into a young adult who could understand. My father made a lot of adult decisions before he was mature enough to understand them. Because
Mhm.
I believe when you're bringing children into the world, when you're making certain decisions about your life, but especially when you bring a child into the world, there is a certain level of maturity on all levels. So that's emotional, financial,
Mhm.
spiritual. There are certain levels of maturity that you need to be at. And unfortunately, we live in a culture that celebrates the birth of a child, but doesn't celebrate as much the evolution of a person. And so we will bring
I
children
like
into the
that. I
world
like that. Can you
prior
repeat
to
that again for us, Elyse? Say that again, please.
um
And I hope y'all writing this down. Elyse, give us that one more time. You celebrate the birth
unfortunately
of a child.
unfortunately we live in a culture where a lot of people celebrate the birth of a child prior to the evolution of the person. So in my father's case,
Mm.
being an adult now, though I know that my birth was ordained by God, it had nothing to do
Yes,
with
man.
necessarily what my parents wanted. Is more so what God wanted and what my purpose was, in God's eyes. And so He brought the two of them together in order to produce me. But it took me a long time to get to that point of healing, to understand like, why doesn't my dad love me like he loves my siblings, or why don't I get the same things that they got growing up? And so it helped me as I started to go to therapy. Once my mom was able to get emergency custody and we were able to start the healing process from the abuse, I started to learn more and more about who I was in
Mm.
relation to who my father is and who my mother is. And so that helped me to put the pieces together of who they are as people. Because I think sometimes as children, like you said, I saw my father as my hero.
Mhm.
Regardless of what he did, I still wanted my father around. I still wanted
Right,
him
right, right,
to
right.
be a version of himself. But until I got into therapy, I started to realize it it is up to God if he ever turns that corner. But I can't wait the rest of my life to wait to see if you do that. So I have to have the grace and the capacity and the bandwidth to say, if you never become that, I still love you
Mhm.
and I still have grace for you. However, I can't allow you to damage me as God continues to build you and rebuild you into the man that you need to be, period. So I think a lot of the times as children, because we have these superhero complexes of our parents, we're like, well, why won't they just be my father? Why won't they just be my mom? Like, you birthed me, so you should be able to know what to do. Not necessarily. Um, if it wasn't modeled for them, if healthy parenting wasn't modeled, if godly parenting wasn't modeled, if appropriate conflict resolution and emotional regulation was never modeled to you,
How do you?
how are you supposed to do something you've never been taught to do? Um, and so it was after talking to a lot of my other family members that I realized my father's an amazing man, probably one of the most gifted people I know. But because of the way that he deals with conflict or deals with pain, um, it clouds a lot of his judgment. And so I had to come to the point where I could just say, I forgive you without questioning or wondering what's going to happen next. Is he
Well,
ever going to do X, Y, and
can
Z?
we take you to a place of celebration? Because we want to celebrate you, that you are a very well spoken young woman to have survived these things and will be a great model for a lot of these young women that have went through, similar situations. But I want you to make sure that you celebrate Elyse. And here at Airing It Out Nation, the nation, come on, you guys. We celebrate you, darling. We celebrate you that you are able to get here and tell us in depth, in clarity. And I just celebrate you, like where you went, and that you do see that there's a difference, which lets you know that there was a mindset change.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I asked you this. So do you feel going through and getting to where you are now? What would you, contribute? Let's say that to what got you here. We heard therapy. We also heard God. You know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm gonna take
Um,
mom too, because
yeah.
mom got us. We
I
gotta
was
give
just getting
mom
ready
her.
to
We
go
gotta give
there.
mom her props too.
I
Come
was just
on.
getting ready to go there. You took the
Yeah.
words out of my mouth. I like to say, um, she doesn't like to hear me say that a lot, but I say it whether I'm with her or not. When God gave me my mother, he gave me somebody who he knew could shape me into the woman I needed to be.
Amen.
And so my mother understood, after coming out of the abuse, after coming out of all of the other stuff that came along with that. So sleepless nights, not sleeping through the night, suicidal thoughts, all of the other stuff. She was like, I don't really have the bandwidth to deal with this without having the emotions that a mother has. And so she literally was just like, I need to find resources for my child. And so I did that. And so I think one of the most beautiful things my mother has ever done for me was be transparent with me, not only in her journey as a woman, but just being honest about where I was and what I needed. And so my prayers for any young adult, any child, any parent, to really sit down and get to know your children, not just by what we say or how we say things, but get to know our silence, get to know when we come in the house and we don't speak, or our body language has changed, or this child is normally an extrovert and now they've gone into coming in and not saying a word, or they've gone from being an introvert to now they're out and about and want to do stuff that they never wanted to do before. So being aware
Yes.
of
Red
any
flag.
change, any red flags, exactly. Becoming more withdrawn. Especially when you're, because I dealt with bullying a lot growing up as well, having cerebral palsy, that was a thing. And so
Please share, because I mean that too, Sarah Parsley, that too on a parent,
yeah,
because I mean everybody knows that I'm transparent. I have a son that has schizoaffective now, but he was schizophrenic. And I have one that deals with depression, and all these things run in my family. I don't mind saying that because I'm a big advocate when it comes to our mental health.
absolutely.
So I really feel like that was a lot, for you to also be dealing with that. and we got to still give mom her superhero cookies again because,
Hello.
she came in,
And
and
she
that's what I
understood.
tell people. It's not only the person that has the condition, but it's also the caregiver. If you really got a support team, if they're
Yeah.
really doing that, we got to pray for them too. We got to be there for them as well.
It was, I think it was just as hard, maybe harder, on my mother than it was on me. Because
Okay.
I think as a mom, and I can speak for her and I can't because I've never had children, but I don't believe in her wildest dreams she would have ever thought that I would ever suffer abuse, and let alone at the hands of my own father. I
Gotcha.
think having to wrap her mind around that. And not only just that, but because I kept things from my mother for a long time. So when I would come home, I wouldn't share with my mother all that was happening until I got a little older and I felt like, okay, mommy can handle this. So I was trying to protect her, and her job as my mama is to protect me. And so I was playing this dual role of how much do I share and how much do I not share, because I don't want to mess up the balancing act in the mask and the masquerade that I've gotten to wear up until this point. And so when the masquerade came off, there was nothing else for me to really do but say, okay, God, we're here. And so I had to go through the painful process of facing my father in court and testifying in court and all of the emotions that come along with that. Um, and so my mother was extremely instrumental in putting me back together in a sense. I lost myself for a very long time. There are times where I think of the goodness of God and I look back at pictures of myself during that time. And I'm just like, God, you have been so good to me. Because in therapy and in other places where we talk about mental health, my story doesn't, you don't really see that often. And so I'm blessed to have a mother who was like, no, 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 no. There's something wrong. And I need to figure out what the something is. And we went through those steps. And so if you're dealing with depression, number one, you have to be honest about where you are. So I had to get to a point where I stopped saying, it's just how my dad is. This is just how it is. And I had to admit
So,
myself.
so he was your crutch, so that you didn't look at who Elyse had become,
Oh
because
yeah.
that was still who your model was. You still had a
Yeah,
model.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, and
Okay,
I
I mean, how did you come to doing pre-K, if you don't mind us knowing?
you know what's interesting? I think, and I say this a lot to myself, I think when I started therapy about a year and a half ago, in this space, in the intentional healing, walking through
I like intentional. I like
the
that. Write that
intentionality
down, you guys. Intentional. I like that.
of digging it up and really asking myself, because now I'm a 24-year-old young adult who is looking at maybe the next 10 to 15 years of her life, knowing that I, want to be a mom at some point. I knew that in order for God to even consider blessing me with that role of having to raise another human being, I had to be honest and say, okay, what type of mother do you want to be?
Right.
I was very
So
clear
you
that
want
I
to be a better model than you already know. You already know the model system. You
right,
changed my modality, you changed it all. So you already got all this going. So you can make better decisions yourself.
right. I wanted
Okay.
to look at who my parents were as
Mhm.
individuals.
Okay.
So I started therapy to figure out, I love my mama, but who is my mama? Who was my mama before she was my mama?
Mm.
Because I think when I started to dissect my mother as a human being, I think you become less judgmental towards your parents.
Amen.
And that's what I wanted to get to. I was like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life and walk around with this chip on my shoulder of, if they hadn't did me like this. Because I hear a lot of my friends say, well, they did me like this and I'm not going to forgive them because you don't know how they hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they didn't hurt you, but I am saying that the next lineage of what you're going to birth shouldn't have to pay for your unhealed wounds. So I was very honest with myself that you got some stuff that you still need to deal with. And so let's go deal with that. And so it was very important for me to dissect that and to break down, okay, who do you want to be? So that's what led, first of all, I love kids. I always have. I want to open my own daycare center where we have conversations like this. We have transparent conversations about where your kid actually is. But I think in a way I was parenting them the way that I wish I had been parented. So even in my classroom, if you hear a lot of the times boys don't cry, and it's bad for a boy to cry. You soft when you cry. So
yes, and I really want you to speak to that, because I really want us to stop putting this in our young men's head. I mean, it really, it's the strength of a man if a man can show his emotion. Because all of you, excuse me, Elyse, I know I jumped on because you hit a nerve. But if a man, if we want our young girls and women, young adults, to have these men out here to take care of them the way they need to be, we got to let them know how to get in touch with the emotional side of them. That doesn't mean that they're soft. That means they're getting all of that out so that they're not running around angry men. And now they're angry fathers and they're angry husbands.
Absolutely.
Angry workers. We don't want that, you guys. We have to do better with that. We have to model that totally different.
So I think
Please, I want you to share in depthly about that. Please.
In the classroom, what was very important to me from the first day that I get my kids is to have those conversations with their parents. What type of personality am I dealing with?
Yeah.
Is this a person?
Can I ask you, how many of them do you see? I mean, I'm not, just give us like a rough average.
The last class that just graduated, I call them my big babies now because they're not babies anymore. But my big babies, there were about eight boys in my class. And so it was very important for me whenever they would have a moment to make it a safe space for them to come. Like, okay, why are you crying?
Yes.
I want to know, like, why everybody else was like, but he's crying and he just needs to stop. No, I need to know why you're crying. So I can walk.
What made you cry? Because sometimes we get in why, and people are afraid. So I always say, reframe it for them if you see it, and say what made you cry? What is
made you cry?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, what I've noticed, is it some type of hurt or anger, and all anger is covered up love. So you're angry about something or something you wanted that didn't happen. And so when I'm in the classroom, I'm like, okay,
got to the root. You get to the root.
Let's get to the root of this. Like, what's really wrong with you? And so they'll start talking, and while they're crying, they're getting it out. But by the end of the conversation, now they have communicative skills that they didn't have 10 minutes ago. Because they thought, okay, when I cry, I'm just supposed to shut up. So if at 5, you teach me that if I cry, I'm just supposed to shut up. At 55, don't be mad at me when I don't open up to you. And there are a lot of women who are confused because we're trying to figure out why you don't open up or why you don't talk, or when you do talk, you say stuff like, it's not that big of a deal. There's nothing wrong with me. But it's because it starts at 5. It starts at 2 when you're like, this hurt my feelings and nobody addressed this. And I think it goes both ways across the board. I know for me, I used to think strength was holding in my emotions or suppressing my emotions because I felt like that kept me safe.
Yes. It was your safe space.
In any abusive, toxic environment, the first thing you do is try to find safety. And so whether that safety and security is, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna show my emotions, I'm gonna act like I'm okay. And then I got into therapy and realized the best thing I could ever do for myself was to give myself the permission to be vulnerable and still be strong. Like I didn't have to substitute one for the other. I could say, okay, this hurts. This hurts.
Permission is a big thing, because I don't think we
give myself
realize
the permission to be fully myself. So if that meant that in that moment I was proud of myself, but I was also disappointed because I wanted this to happen and it didn't happen. To live in both mediums. I think sometimes we're like, we gotta be this or that. But what if you're both? What if I'm happy that this happened, but I'm also disappointed that that didn't happen? in learning to give myself more grace. I think I was really, and I can still be that way. So I
Hard.
don't want to make it seem like I'm at this point where I never have moments where I still struggle. I absolutely do. And I still walk through, is this really that serious? Like, you're beating yourself up and it's not that serious. And so remembering to be gentle with yourself. I find myself writing a lot. I like to call them progress diaries.
I
I
like
write
that.
myself notes of,
No, you guys,
this is where you
progress up.
were last year, this time last year. This is where you were this time last year. And so you may not be where you want to be necessarily, but you're not where you used to be. And so learning how to throw yourself momentary parties to say, I overcame this hurdle today, or I might have lost this battle yesterday, but I'm going to keep fighting, and tomorrow it's going to be different. And so continuing to walk through that and continuing to read my word, I think being in my word was so helpful, because I started to realize, oh God, there are certain promises that you've already declared over my life. So I may have to fight, the good fight of faith, but I understand that it's going to end in victory.
Yeah, and
Because
then now, if you think about it, now, I don't think any of us realize you don't save yourself. You're not saved for you. You're
right,
saved for whomever is waiting on you,
yeah,
whomever your video right now. If you weren't saved, you wouldn't be able to say the things that you're saying, to be able to
right,
help the young adults that I know you're going to help with this video, even the parents that you're going to help with this, with this podcast here that we're having this conversation. Let's just make it a conversation. The fact that you were able to come on here and air that out. I mean,
yeah. And I think also to realize two things, and this really freed me, and I hope this frees somebody else. I am both of my parents. I am not one or the other. I am both of them. I am both their strengths and at times their weaknesses. And that makes me fully who I am. So it's not like I love mommy more because this, or at times my father shows up in me and it's good for me. And then there are times that he will show up in me and I'll be like, let's sit down. We need to chill out. So it just depends on the moment. But I also think when I forgave my father and saw my father as human,
forgiveness is key.
it was such a beautiful moment for me, because I was like, he will always be your father. And he not only will he always be your father, but he is the father God chose for you. Because you don't get to pick your parents.
No.
So it wasn't like you got to vote. You know, it wasn't like I got to say, God, I really don't, they got to me as you. I don't want them. I don't have time for that. And so I really feel like I was gifted to my parents, and they were gifted to me to learn that your heroes are human. My heroes are human, and they've walked through their own stuff, and they've done a great job. And so giving again, coming back to giving grace and finding healing in being able to say, I picked my career probably because I want to be the example for another little girl that life doesn't get to define you, that God really does get the final say. Trauma doesn't get the final say. You can heal, you can be better. And not only can you be better, but then you can go to war for those who may not ever say it, who may not ever come to this place.
Infiltrate. That's what we
to say, like,
infiltrate. Yes.
It's me. Like, and
yes.
I think when I took that power back and said, Satan, I'm your opposition, because you thought that 12-year-old was going to lay there and die. Yeah. And now she's 24 and she's able to say, that's me. Yeah. All of that is me. Yeah. And so to give myself my voice again and to say, like, God, wherever you take me next, I don't ever want to lose her, because it was a level of humility and openness and vulnerability that I got to see, and I'm still unraveling to a certain degree. And I think forever will unravel about who you must have thought I would become, because I didn't know then what I know now, which is that I was gonna be okay,
and that you're amazing. You got to take amazing that you're amazing. Okay, so Elyse, I'm getting looked at that we coming to our time. But I want you, because I want you to come back. We're inviting you right now. We're planting the seed because you're amazing. And we really want you to come back and share even more of you. But right now, leave us with a piece that each and every person that hears this video or hears the replay of this will be able to pick up on a day that it's not so good, or a day that they can think about, well, you know what? I remember seeing Airin it out with Elyse Lancaster, and this is what she said. Give me that.
Keep fighting. Keep fighting. Because God is faithful. He's faithful. It's not gonna be easy and it's not gonna be pretty, but it's gonna be worth it.
Yes.
And if you never lose your faith, it'll be worth it and you'll come out on the other side.
Amen. 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 I'm like, you did amazing, like amazing, amazing, amazing. Your story is so amazing. You guys, as always, I love each and every one of you, but God loves y'all even more. Y'all know that because He's blessed you and me with the time that we spent here with Miss Lancaster. She's gonna come back and see us some more. But until then, I want each and every one of you to be productive. And when I say be productive, I want you to be productive, not in just living what you think monetary and these things that we look at every day and we put on pedestals before we put God. It should be God, it should be yourself, it should be your family, and the rest of it will fall into place. So I want each and every one of you to revisit these things that you have let, and I have let, and Miss Lancaster let rule us and run us. Ms. Lancaster was fortunate enough to be able to come out earlier, but think about the ones that are still out here. You and I both know that may still be suffering in silence. So that's why it's so important that we ask each and every one of you to make sure you share this video and make sure you rewatch it. Make sure you get the nuggets out of it. Make sure you take some notes and don't just listen to these things. I want you guys to I challenge you, apply them in your life if it's something that can help you, any vitamin that you may get out of here, okay? So don't forget, Miss Lancaster loves you. I love you, but he loves you even more. Be a blessing and make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, and give us some comments. We love your feedback, and we'll see you the next time. And guess what? Airing It Out with Fuller and Elyse Lancaster. And don't forget, you guys, we will put everything at the end of the video that Miss Lancaster has told you, because I want you to get her book. Make sure you go and get this book, because she gave you some nuggets, but she gonna give you the whole menu, okay? See you guys next time.
Bye.